Hello everyone, it's me, Sarah, ready to bring you another full breakdown video. Today we're tackling How to Train Your Dragon, a live action remake adaptation of the 2010 animated classic from DreamWorks. But before we tame the beast, please give us a like, share and subscribe to the channel. Ready? Get your snacks ready because here we go. The film opens up on Berk with a nice history narration by Hiccup. He explains that his village has been around for hundreds of years, and while it's mostly peaceful, they do have a pest problem. They have an actual dragon problem, but instead of moving away to a safer area, they're Vikings, and of course they welcome the challenge. We get a few scenes of chaos as dragons come swooping out the sky, snatching up livestock and burning down houses. This is until the chief, Stoik the Vast, shows up. He rounds up a group of his best warriors and takes the fight to them, throwing shields and axes, wielding giant spiky clubs and warhammers. Most of the children are told to stay indoors, except for a group known as the Fire Brigade, led by the courageous and beautiful Astrid. Their job is to go around and put out the fires. Hiccup is kind of clumsy and a bit of a weakling, so he's stuck dreaming of being out there while he's actually behind a counter helping sell and craft armour and weapons. He is head over heels for Astrid, but because he's kind of a dope, the Fire Brigade clown on him. What the people don't know, or if they do, they chide him for it, is that Hiccup is actually a genius and has designed a plethora of unique and useful inventions. Albeit some of them don't always work the way he expects. I mean, I don't know about you, but a double-barreled chain ball launcher is pretty badass and definitely could come in handy taking down a dragon. However, Hiccup is determined to one day prove to the whole village that he's a true Viking and begins formulating a plan on how to pull it off. The scene shifts over to the chief, who's launching catapults to rain down destruction over the winged beasts, even taking on a two-headed fire-spewing lizard. But that's nothing compared to what's coming next, the Night Fury. No one has ever even gotten a clear look at it, but its speeds and manoeuvrability is unmatched by any other dragon. We cut back to Hiccup, who readies his double-barrel blaster, and he's watching the sky after the Night Fury. He takes aim, he breathes deep, and fires. It's a hit. The dragon, leaving a trail of billowy smoke behind it, crashes down somewhere in the distant forest. The chief sees it go down, but not who shot it, and rallies his men to go after it. He bumps into Hiccup, whom he has to save by scaring off a dragon. Here, in his utter look of disappointment, as he sizes up Hiccup, we learn that the chief is also his father. The chief berates Hiccup in front of the whole village, but Hiccup tries to stand up for himself, claiming he is a warrior as well. The chief, as much as he loves his son, puts a hand on his shoulder and says, "You may be a lot of things, but a dragon slayer you are not and never will be." The crowd mumbles in agreement, a few of them even snickering. He's nothing but a joke to all of them, and he will never outgrow the mighty shadow that his father has cast. Then again, Hiccup doesn't know the meaning of the phrase give up, and although he spends the next few moments complaining about his life to pretty much the only friend he's got, the blacksmith aka Gobber the Belch, he now is even more determined than ever to prove once and for all there's more to him than everyone thinks. Later that night, Hiccup sneaks off to the forest while the town gathers in the Great Hall to discuss what to do against the increasingly dangerous dragon attacks. The chief proposes to take a group of their best fighters and go out after the beasts, to find the mother of dragons and kill her. Wait, didn't Jon Snow already do that? Dun dun dun! Yeah, unlike Game of Thrones, the dragons in this film are a threat. But most of them are just goofy and they don't really hate the villagers, they're just hungry and sheep taste really good. Think back to like the Spyro games back on PlayStation 1, similar to that. Anyway, the meeting lets out and the blacksmith walks in, looking to have a word with the chief. He tells him about what Hiccup said to him and that while the boy may not be as bloodthirsty and capable as the other Vikings in the clan, he's got guts and he's not gonna just quit. For a moment, a show of pride crosses the chief's face, but he dismisses the idea and claims things will always be the way they have always been. We slip over to Hiccup, who is now deep in the misty woods looking for the Night Fury he shot out of the sky. After about half a day's journey, trekking through rivers and over hills, he finally spots it, curled up in a patch of dirt beneath some tall pines. Hiccup approaches carefully, pulling his knife. The beast doesn't move, it's completely caught in the net. Now it's his chance. As he prepares to end the dragon's life, he looks into the eyes and he can't do it. Instead, he sets it free and immediately pounces on him, screeching in his face. It looks as if he's about to take a big bite out of him, but instead turns and begins to sort of fly away. Its wings is severely damaged and it disappears over a cliff. Hiccup returns home and goes to see his dad. The chief informs him that he's going to be admitted to dragon training in the morning. While the news should have excited him, well, Hiccup no longer wants to kill dragons. The chief says he will, and the training will toughen him up. And there's no ifs and no buts about it. The chief then gathers up his gear and heads out to join the hunting party. The next morning comes and we are now at the Trial of Fire, basically a big arena where people test their mettle in a 1v1 against a captured dragon. Of course, the fire brigades are all here, and when they see Hiccup, they begin bullying him instantly. Except for Astrid, who looks amused but keeps quiet. In walks a blacksmith to interrupt and inform them all that the training begins now. Today's lesson is all about defense, so the kids all grab their weapons and the blacksmith lets loose a dragon, albeit a human-sized pudgy one, who doesn't seem to be very intelligent either. Rules are simple: you get blasted by fire, you are out. Eaten, you are out. Ripped in half, out. In other words, you lose if you die. Each dragon has a limited amount of fire blasts they can do, and this dragon in particular has 6 shots. Let the fight begin. The first two to get knocked out are Roughnut and Toughnut, who while fighting over a shield get hit by a small blast which sends them flying into the dirt. The next one to get taken out is Fishlegs, who can't help himself but to rattle off facts about dragons and stats like he's a dungeon master for Dungeons and Dragons. Snot can't help himself because of his ego and tries to flirt with Astrid while also already proclaiming themselves as victors. Astrid informs him that there can only be one winner, and when she ducks out the way, Snot takes a fireball to the shield, sending him sprawling. Now the dragon only has 3 shots left, and there's only 2 fighters remaining, Astrid and, well, Hiccup, who has been hiding behind a barricade this whole time. Quick on her feet, Astrid uses a spear to turn away the dragon's attention, who fires a blast at an empty barrel. But then the dragon turns and goes after Hiccup, firing a fireball that ignites his shield. Looks like Hiccup is out. However, the dragon doesn't cease its attack and goes after him, ready to engulf him in flames. Gobber steps in and uses his prosthetic hammer hand, gets the dragon to chomp down on it and drags it back to its cage. He turns and tells his student the most important lesson: a dragon will always go for the kill. Later that afternoon, Hiccup goes to visit the Night Fury again, this time bringing a shield and some food. It approaches him cautiously but eyes the fish he's holding, and it looks hungry. The two slowly approach one another as Hiccup holds out the fish to him, when he notices the dragon doesn't have any teeth and calls him toothless. The Night Fury swallows the fish and then it looks positively happy. It crawls up to Hiccup and sits down like a good boy, and the two share a bonding moment over the fish. But when Hiccup tries to touch him, Toothless jumps back and makes himself a kind of protective barrier by burning a circle around himself. Hiccup stays close, just observing. The sun begins to go down and Toothless notices Hiccup drawing something in the sand. It studies it curiously, then, with excitement, it grabs a branch and begins to draw too. How cute. Big old scaly kitty. Carefully avoiding to step on any of the lines Toothless drew, Hiccup dances around and gets close to the dragon. He then extends a hand which Toothless nuzzles. Friendship has been achieved. Back at the village, night has fallen and the students are gathered around a fire, listening to Gobber tell stories about how he lost his limbs. Hiccup excuses himself and sneaks away to the armory, and Astrid watches from a distance, curious to see what he's up to. If you've seen the original film, you already know what's coming. Cue a montage of Hiccup building the winged adapter thing to help get Toothless back into the air. The next morning, he goes to visit the good boy, feeds him his fish except for eels which freak him out, and then surprises him with his newest invention by attaching it to his tail. The moment Toothless feels this though, he takes off in the air. I guess it works. We once again cut back to the arena, and today is all about teamwork. Slayer of teammates that I am myself, I would totally dominate this competition. Yes, the right to him. I kill him every time we play a game together. My bad. Each person partners up with someone and the arena is filled with a thick fog, making it hard to see the dragon. Hiccup comes face to face with a two-headed beastie, and to everyone's surprise he manages to scare it off back into its cage, using an eel carcass. Looking proud of himself, Hiccup turns and returns to the group. We get another invention montage, this time of Hiccup designing a riding saddle, which he plans to put on Toothless, so he can soar through the skies with him. At first, Toothless isn't so impressed, but after a few more modifications, both for sturdiness and for Toothless comfort, the saddle turns out to be a super successful. Until they crash into a field full of dandelions, which seems to make Toothless sneeze uncontrollably. Each time Hiccup learns a new fact about dragons' behaviour through his adventures with the Night Fury, he utilises those lessons the next day in the arena scenarios, slowly but surely climbing the ranks and making himself an actual candidate for warrior. The other students become suspicious of Hiccup, especially Astrid, who is determined now more than ever before to figure him out and what he's hiding. But we all know the secret. These dragons are just big cats and dogs looking for some loving. Soon the entire village is hearing about Hiccup and his triumphs, and many come to see him and ask him to tell his stories and share his knowledge. Astrid is losing her shit over this though, taking her aggression out on a poor tree. This is when she spots Hiccup wandering through the woods to his secret spot, and she decides to follow him. However, too bad she loses sight of him once again and is forced to return home empty-handed. A few days later, and Chief Stoik returns on a single ship with a handful of Vikings aboard. They look utterly defeated. On top of that, he receives some devastating news. Hiccup is gone. Psych. Gobber tries to explain that Hiccup often leaves the village to go on his little quests and to get away from his newfound celebrity status. But he's always been kicking ass at the trial of the flame. This flabbergasts the chief. You mean his Hiccup, that scrawny, goofy, clumsy fool, is gonna become a warrior after all? Through a bunch of misunderstandings, the chief initially tries to congratulate his son on his victories by pretending to be angry with him about keeping secrets. That involves a dragon. Since Hiccup thinks he's talking about Toothless, he almost spills the beans when Stoik changes his tone into a celebratory mood. An awkward father and son moment later, and the chief bestows Hiccup with a helmet. It was forged from armour and used to belong to his mother, particularly her breastplate. Yep, anyway, the next day, the next trial again. Once again though, Hiccup comes out on top and Asteroid is annoyed. It's time to crown the top slayer and surprise, surprise, it's Hiccup. The people cheer, the fire brigade kids are somewhat excited and Asteroid looks crushed. But Hiccup most of all looks terrified. If he's a dragon slayer now, what about Toothless? He rushes to the grove to try and get Toothless ready for flight again and to get him out of the area, when, dun dun dun, Astrid is there, and he's caught red-handed. She hasn't yet seen the dragon though, as Toothless was smart enough to hide himself. Astrid instead thinks he's been getting special training with one of the other Vikings from the village. When she knocks Hiccup down though, this Toothless cannot stand and he reveals himself. Astrid instantly goes into warrior mode, ready to battle, but Hiccup jumps in between them and he tries to introduce the two to one another, but she takes off running, heading back to the village. Toothless and Hiccup take to the skies and chase after her, scooping her up in his claws or his paws. Well, he picks her ass up and flies her off to a secluded area so that they can talk it out. And when I say secluded, I mean a giant rock pillar in the middle of the ocean. Hiccup asks Astrid to trust him, and when she looks into his eyes, she strangely feels at ease. She climbs up onto Toothless and he takes off again, showing off his moves and scaring the shit out of Astrid. She breaks down and apologises to Toothless and he ceases his crazy stunts, instead calmly gliding through the air now, showing off the terrific view of the island high above in the clouds. She wraps her arms around Hiccup tightly and holds him close, but she's also completely captivated by the moment. Day turns into night and Astrid finally admits that Hiccup was right. Not all dragons are bad, but what about the big ceremony tomorrow? Hiccup is supposed to kill an actual dragon. How will they convince the village that not all dragons are bad, when over the decades so much destruction and loss has occurred because of them? Even Hiccup lost his mother to a dragon. Toothless becomes restless suddenly, sensing something else in the clouds with them. It seems other dragons have joined them in the sky and they are on the hunt, and not just a few but hundreds. You know, thinking back on George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire universe, and bear with me as it's been a while since I've read the books, but I remember short tales of Valyria where the first dragons were tamed by the Valyrians, and this sequence of the films reminds me of that. I hope the rumours are true and we'll get a film set in that period. But who knows, after all, we're still waiting on the final 2 books in the main series. Anyway, the flock of dragons seems to be heading towards a volcano which houses the dragon nest. The very thing Chief Stoik was searching for. Here we meet the mother dragon, so big she's able to eat other dragons. Astrid cleverly puts it together using an allegory to how bees behave. Most of the dragons are workers, some are defenders, and she controls them all through a complex sound she makes. The dragon then go out, hunt for food and whatever, and bring it back to her. If she is dissatisfied in any way, she just eats that dragon. Sounds like a typical American marriage. Kidding. Astrid says they need to tell the village, but Hiccup doesn't want any dragons to die. There has to be another way. He pleads with her and she can't help herself, she's smitten and so will keep quiet. But Hiccup better come up with a plan. She gives him a kiss and then leaves to head back home, and Toothless makes a face at him, chirping at a kind of bleh. It's the final day of the trial of the flame, and Hiccup is about to stun his audience with something they've never seen before. Chief Stoik brags about his son even though he does poke fun at him a little bit, but he's ultimately proud of his son for what he's achieved. Hiccup gets some encouragement from Astrid and she tells him no matter what, she will stand by his side. With courage pumping through his veins, Hiccup steps out into the arena. The crowd is chanting his name, everyone is excited to see what he's about to do. Hiccup heads to the weapon rack and grabs a shield and a knife. The cage is released and a big old flamey boy slithers out, even setting some of the crowd on fire. Oh boy, Hiccup is in trouble. Or is he? The dragon lowers itself to look into Hiccup's eyes and Hiccup puts down his shield. He extends his hand and even takes his helmet off, and the dragon calms. Hiccup reaches out and touches the dragon's nose. The chief grows angry and yells for the fight to be stopped, And even though Hiccup insists to let him show how the dragons can be tamed, the father grows even angrier, which sets the dragon off back into rage mode. Toothless hears this all the way across the forest in his little grove and starts heading towards the village to save his friend. Hiccup is now desperately trying to avoid being turned into a crispy steak, and Astrid runs into the arena to try and help. The chief tries to get down and help him, but he can't. Suddenly, Toothless shows up and pounces on the red scaly enemy. He snaps his jaw at him and even manages to shoo it back into its hole. But now the rest of the Vikings are on alert. After all, Toothless is a Night Fury. Both Astrid and Hiccup try to stop it all when Stoik tackles Toothless and attempts to kill him. The rest of the warriors all jump onto him and hold him down. What dicks? Stoik orders the dragon to be put in a cage with the others and grabs hold of Hiccup. It's time for a real father-son chat. Long story short, Stoik hasn't dealt with the loss of his wife and the pressure of leadership. Hiccup starts to explain about the mother dragon, letting it slip that he knows the location of the nest. A gleam hits Stoik's eye and he finally has the upper hand. He's gonna exterminate them once and for all. His parting words with Hiccup: "You're not my son." Oh boy, did this day not go as planned. What a dick of a dad. Hundreds of warriors pile onto boats and they strap Toothless in to use him like some kind of GPS. Hiccup can only watch helplessly. Astrid finds him and basically tells him to man up. He won her over after all, and she's the fiercest warrior in the village, so he shouldn't give up. Hiccup breaks down, calling himself weak for being the first Viking in hundreds of years to not kill a dragon, but Astrid reminds him he's the first to ride one. He goes on to tell her that the whole reason he didn't kill Toothless is because he looked just as frightened as him. At the moment he realised they were both just living things. Astrid then says that she bets Toothless is even more scared now. So what's he gonna do about it? Time to do something stupid. Back on the ship, they finally reach Dragon Island and guide themselves through the treacherous rocky waterways. Meanwhile, Hiccup gathers the rest of the fire brigade and puts his plan into action. They are gonna rescue Toothless while also possibly, with the smallest chance, capture the mother dragon and make peace. The ship finally reaches the shore and the dragons are getting antsy, watching the Vikings approach. Back at the arena, Hiccup begins introducing his team to their respective dragon companions. He's made enough saddles for them all too. Dragon Flight School is officially in session. The assault on the island kicks off in full swing as Vikings launch boulders to break open the cave entrance, and then the rest of the ground troops storm in, led by Stoik himself. But to their surprise, the dragons don't attack them and instead flee to the skies and fly away. What's happening? The ground begins to quake and a deep guttural roar emanates from the blackness of the mountain cave. Out of the stone emerges the great mother dragon herself, roaring so loud it deafens the scream of fleeing Vikings. She stomps the entire platoons and bathes the ship in fire. War is here and the enemy is ferocious. Stoik tries to distract the queen to give the others time to get away, but then, what's that? A bird, a plane, Superman? Nope, it's Hiccup and the company coming down from the clouds and firing fire blasts from their dragon companions. While the others enact a plan of attack, Astrid takes Hiccup down to rescue Toothless and the two are reunited. The rest of the crew are fighting it out with Mother, Snot even managing to jump off his own dragon onto the back of the Mother's head and starts hitting it in the eye with a hammer. Don't worry, it's not as gruesome as you think it would be, so it's safe to bring your kids too. Stoik aids Hiccup, getting Toothless ready for fight and apologises to him, telling him he's proud of him. Now the gang's all here, running their play against a big scaly mama. The wails she makes though are confusing the dragons, making them rebel against their riders. Astrid hops into Big Mama's mouth and starts breaking her teeth with her rusty battle axe. But oh no, she's about to become flame broiled. Swoosh, and Toothless manages to swoop down and scoop her out, carrying her to safety. New plan. Let's see if Mother Dragon can fly. Toothless charges up a sonic boom and blasts her with it, which pisses her off long enough to run after them at full speed. She gets fast enough that when she starts flapping her wings, she too takes to the sky. Showdown time, final round. With a purple blast here and one there, Toothless is punching literal holes in Mother Dragon's wings. She spews fire in every direction, bellowing in anguish. She chomps at them, but Toothless is just too fast. They nosedive towards the ground, Mother hot on their heels. She gears up to blast them with another massive firebomb, and Toothless pulls a 180 mid-air, firing his Kamehameha into her mouth, which explodes in almost nuclear blast, stunning the dragon so that it smashes face first into the rocky shores of Dragon Island. It's been a tough battle, and the Viking survivors all come to the aid of Hiccup and Toothless, who have also crashed into the beach. Stoik apologises to Toothless directly, that's good, and begins to cry, mourning Hiccup, who he thinks is dead. But then Toothless unwraps its wings and reveals he held on to Hiccup and kept him safe. And he's alive, the crowd cheers, and Stoik thanks the Night Fury for saving his son. Well, most of him. Looks like Hiccup had a little hiccup of his own and lost a leg. But with Toothless as his personal rickshaw, who needs legs anyway? When Hiccup wakes up, he is greeted by Toothless and then by the rest of the village. Apparently Astrid has been teaching everyone how to ride dragons, and now there's dragons and people living together in harmony. Astrid gives Hiccup a big kiss and Hiccup climbs aboard Toothless, and the two take flying tour of the island. Hiccup once again narrates about his village, but now it's different. It's hopeful, talking about how things have changed and gotten much better, and no longer have any pests, but pets, as everyone now has a dragon of their own. Yay! So the film pretty much wraps up, and as you can see, it's pretty much scene for scene followed the original animated film. Curious to know what you guys thought about it though, so leave your opinions in the comments, we would love to hear from you. I want to thank you all for checking out our breakdown, and make sure to like, share and subscribe, and come back every week for a fresh review and breakdown, as well as many other videos. And I want to apologise for any issues with this video, my computer has been fucking up bad. I've been your host Sarah anyway, and I hope you have a beautiful day and take care everyone. Goodbye.